Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a roundup of things I've been testing and using, but I maybe haven't been able to do a dedicated review of on Instagram or here on YouTube. There's so much product that I am always trying and testing behind the scenes, but I don't always get to incorporate into like a themed video. So this is kind of the umbrella video for all of those things that I've been testing and I want to share reviews of, but I just haven't had the time to curate into a dedicated review. I'm doing this video in two parts. This is makeup and the second video is going to be skincare and body care. So stay tuned for that and let's just get right into it. I am starting with the Peach and Lily Skin Shield Blurring Primer. This is a silicone-free primer that creates a really smooth and hydrated canvas. I'm actually really surprised that it doesn't contain silicones because it does have that elegant smoothing feel, not quite as like velvety smooth as silicone blurring primers go. This is more of like a lightweight lotiony texture. This is what it looks like, and you'll also see cutaways of me applying most of these products. It has this very smoothing quality to it that hydrates the skin, that plumps up the skin, and it also does seem to lightly blur the appearance of pores. This isn't your illuminating primer, nor is it the kind of primer that's necessarily going to extend the longevity of your makeup, but it just creates a really nice canvas for makeup. Admittedly, I'm not someone who wears primer unless I'm usually looking for longevity or maybe I want a super hydrated base. But on the days that I have used this, I feel like my skin has looked really nice. I've used it today and I do feel like my base makeup applied really beautifully. Another occasion in which this is very useful to have is if you're using a stick foundation. Sometimes I feel like stick foundations can be harder to blend out, so it's really nice to have this kind of product as a base because it allows the stick foundation to blend out with ease. It gives a bit of glide to the product and it sort of melts the product into the skin a little bit better. I mean, you can also use a facial spray or something like that, but if you don't want something quite so wet feeling, but you still want really hydrated skin that gives the foundation something to melt into, like I did today, I think this is a really beautiful product. And Peach and Lily, I've been really impressed with what I've tried from them. Continuing with base products, I have the Milk Makeup, what is this called? The Sunshine Under Eye Tint and Brightener. And I have the shade number 3, which is a very good golden undertone. If you are my skin tone, even slightly deeper, I would say, and you have golden undertones, it's really, really nice. So this is kind of like a serum concealer consistency. It comes in the same delivery system and applicator as their Sunshine Skin Tint, which is like a pump with a roller ball. I don't love the roller ball, but it is kind of fun to apply. And one pump is honestly more than enough for both sides, honestly, for me. I find this surprisingly pigmented. I kind of expected it to be a little bit more sheer, but I actually find it has a really solid medium coverage, and you actually don't need a lot to get the coverage that you need. This is the shade 3. Obviously, my arm is lighter than my face, but it's a really, I would say it's a slightly warm golden shade. And for me, it's really nice because it has a kind of corrective quality because it is a little bit peachy. Moving on to cheeks, I have the Patrick Ta Creme and Powder Duos, and I have one of their newer shades. They recently did a shade extension, and this is the shade She's Blushing. So She's Blushing looks like this. Looks like this, and it's a really neutral beige rose, I would say. It has a slight browniness to it, but for the most part, it is kind of like a neutral to warm leaning rose. Both the powder and the cream do have a slight pearl through them. Nothing glittery, but if you've tried the older shades, you know what I mean. It just kind of creates a nice luminosity on the skin, and the formula is consistent with the past shades. It's just beautiful. I have some comparison swatches with the shade She's So LA, which I will throw in here, but just side by side, I think you can see the difference. So this is She's So LA, which is much more brown. It's much warmer, and it almost has, it almost leans a little bit more orange compared to She's Blushing, which is obviously rosier. It's much more of like a classic pink blush. Both of these I find to be extremely wearable with a multitude of makeup looks. They're both looks I can turn, or both blushes that I can turn to for any kind of look, really. And I just think, you know, if it's something warmer, I'll go with She's So LA. If it's something more neutral, I'll go with She's Blushing. To go with the blush, I have been loving the Sonia G Mini Cheek Brush. I think it's everything I've wanted in a powder blush brush. I love how compact it is. I purchased it specifically for the size. If you have used the Real Techniques setting brush, I wanted a luxury, like high-end natural bristle version of that brush, and that's what this is. I use it with powder only, but it's perfect for applying powder to like focused areas on the face, but it's also diffused enough that you can get the blend. You can sort of sweep it across the cheeks. You can blend it and diffuse the edges, and it's so soft. It just feels like a luxury experience, and I find that it's just the perfect size. I think a lot of cheek brushes can be too big. You sometimes end up with blush all over your face, and sometimes you might want that look. Sometimes I do want that look, but at other times I want something where I have a bit more control over the application, especially if I want like a more sculpted blush look, if I want to focus it like in the blush bronzer area a little bit more. It's been beautiful, and Sonia G recently restocked her brushes. That's why I picked this up. Another cream cheek product that is not new on the market, but it's new to me, is the Chantikai Cheek Chalet. So this is described as a hydrating gel cream blush, and I do agree with that. I think I didn't really know what to expect. I actually got this in the Chantikai advent calendar, and it is a very sheerly tinted gel formula. So the shade Lively it looks like a really bright coral, but just wait till you see how it blends out. It blends out into like a really sheer wash of a kind of like juicy corally tint. It's definitely a natural makeup product. If you are someone who doesn't like to look like you're wearing a lot of makeup, or you're not comfortable, or you're in a professional setting where you can't wear a lot of makeup, but you want a bit of something to wake you up, this is a really nice option. I do think if you have deeper skin than then this shade probably won't show up on you because it is so sheer. But it is a really elegant formula. I actually was worried with a gel blush that it wouldn't blend out evenly, but I think you can see the way it's swatched, it blends out and just creates the nicest flush of color, like you've just come from a run or something like that. The way I like to apply this is to apply it on the back of my hand, and then I pick it up with a brush, and then I pat it onto the cheeks. I feel like that just creates the most natural look overall. Then I've got a cream highlighter, and I was recently able to try a few things from Violette FR. They sent over a really lovely package, and I have really enjoyed what I've tried. First of all, let's talk about the branding. This is the Balm Shine, which is their cream highlighter stick. It has this really minimal white packaging with the gold logo here, which I think is just so beautiful. So the Balm Shine is a cream highlighter. I'm actually wearing it today, and it comes in one shade only. It's very translucent, so it's almost not really a shade. I mean, it looks like a peachy champagne, but I'm gonna swatch it on the back of my hand for you. I think you're going to see it's not really much of a color at all. I'm always wary with cream highlighters as someone with combo oily skin, especially going into warmer months, because some cream highlighters don't set down. They stay tacky on the cheeks, especially if they're balmy. And I hate the feeling of like my hair getting stuck on my cheeks. Ugh, it just like makes me feel not good. I like them for an editorial effect, but for real life application, I don't like that feeling. But this one doesn't do that. I find that especially when you apply it with a finger and sort of tap it across the cheeks, you get a really thin application that doesn't stay sticky because it's so thin. I do like applying it that way anyway because it is a solid stick. I like warming it up with the finger, and then tapping it on gives me the best application without disturbing any foundation underneath. I would not swipe directly across the cheeks over foundation, and that's true of any cream highlighter. For the most part, this is a pretty translucent, slightly pearly sheen. There are these tiny, they call them mirror pigments, that are almost like micro shimmers. They're teeny tiny, and they're sort of sparsely dispersed in the formula, but they're not big enough that you really see them on the cheeks. I think they just reflect light. I don't like a glittery highlighter at all. And even this is so fine that I wouldn't even consider it really glitter. It just looks like a natural glow I think you can see on the cheeks. By the way, this is my second time filming this video because the first time my mic battery died. Tragedy. So obviously I had to crack open a big boy to get me through. So let's stay with Violette FR and move into eyes. So in the package that they sent over, they let me pick out a couple of shades of the U paint, which is their liquid eyeshadow. It's a liquid cream eyeshadow. Comes like this in a doe foot applicator. So they look like this, and they have the same gold logo. The packaging, again, is beautiful. So this formula comes in two finishes. So there's a matte finish and a metallic finish. So I picked out one matte and two metallics, and I'm gonna talk about the metallics first. So my favorite shade that I picked out is Scarabée d'Or, golden scarab, essentially, and it's this beautiful, like deep olive with an antique gold metallic finish. This is what the doe foot looks like. It's very thin. And these are meant to be used as either eyeshadows or eyeliners. So let me swatch this for you. That is the shade. Isn't that incredible? If you watched my last YouTube video, I was wearing this all over the eyes, and I've also created a few different looks with these on Instagram. And then this is the shade Cuivre de l'Aube. I'm not French, I don't know. This is a really beautiful, like brownie copper. It's not quite as complex as the Scarab shade. I think because the Scarab has that golden flash, it just has a bit more contrast, but this is also equally beautiful. And then I picked up the matte shade in Caramel Chaude, which is this kind of like deep terracotta caramel. Obviously, you know, I like warm tones, so looks like this. I do think the matte shade looks deeper on the skin, especially when it's swatched heavily like this than it does in the tube. So a word of warning, these do dry down very, very quickly. You need to be prepared to work quickly. I was prepared to do that because I had seen reviews of this product before, but once they set, they do not budge. Like, I have very oily eyelids and they don't move around at all. I think because the metallic formula has those micro pigments and micro glitters suspended in the formula, they make for easier blending somehow, like around the edges. I think the matte formula is a little bit less forgiving because you can see if you apply it directly to the eye, you can sort of see where you've applied, and it can be a little bit more difficult to blend out. So my application tip for the matte formula is actually to apply it on the back of your hand. You only need a dot, and then take your brush and make sure it's evenly distributed in the brush itself, and then apply it to the eyes. When you do that, you get a beautiful finish, a beautiful look. The metallics, I think if you're gonna apply directly to the eyes, can be a little bit easier to maneuver. So I think the appeal of these is the shade curation, especially that Scarab shade. I feel like it's a shade I look for often, but I don't always find. And I loved this just all across the eye, and I did apply it directly with the applicator. I think with the matte shades, you just need to be prepared to work quickly. And for that reason, if you're a beginner, like an eyeshadow beginner, it may not be the most forgiving. But I think if you figure out the application method and find a way to make it work for you, you will be happy with the result because they are so long lasting. On the way other end of the budget spectrum, I recently had the opportunity to try some products from Colourpop, and I have not purchased something from Colourpop in like 7 years or something. It's been a long time, but there are some old favorite formulas as well as a bunch of new formulas that I didn't know about. So one of my old favorites is the Colourpop Super Shock Shadow. I feel like this was the cream hybrid shadow that kind of launched us into what we know now as like the cream shadow craze. So I picked up the shade A Little Corky, which is a really beautiful bronzy champagne. And it's much more complex than on the eyes than it looks in the pan. So obviously the Super Shock formula is like this cream putty hybrid. I think what makes this shade interesting is that it has a warm base. Like if you look at it right there, it's this very warm camely color, but it actually flashes a very neutral champagne. And so it kind of is warm and neutral at the same time. And when you blend it out on the edges of the eye, it looks a little bit warmer. I'm wearing it today with bronzer in the crease, but it just flashes very neutral. And of course, like all Super Shock shadows, it's really smooth and it is very forgiving. It applies well with fingers and with a brush. So I've really enjoyed this shade. It also has some slight shimmer micro glitter particles through it. It's very daytime appropriate. It's a great one and done shadow. And of course it's Colourpop, so it's like under $10. So prepare yourself for a barrage of lip products because there are many. And if you like sheer, juicy, balmy, tinted lips, this is going to be your segment. So let's go from sheer to opaque, starting with the Bite Beauty Agave Lip Balm. And this is called Nectar. I don't know if they do this in multiple shades, but this is the untinted version. First off, the packaging is really beautiful. It's this matte copper, it says Bite across the tube. It's not a very big tube, but I actually really like the slim tube packaging. I find it really elegant. This smells ever so slightly of like a fruity scent, a generic fruity scent, not super sweet, but just kind of a little bit of something. And this is the kind of balm that is really going to coat your lips. It's not your oily, melty, creamy lip balm. It is actually the kind of like heavy duty lip balm that is going to coat your lips. It has a bit of staying power because it's not super emollient and like greasy on the lips. So that brings us to the opposite end of the spectrum, which is lip oils. This is the Ciate Grapefruit and Yuzu Burst Revitalizing Lip Oil. I also have this in Mango and Lime, which is, I mean, they're both so juicy and delicious and yummy. If you grew up in the 90s or early 2000s, yes, these do look like the Lancome juicy tubes, but this is like the modern version of that. Those were really sticky from what I remember. This is more of a slippy, thin, nourishing lip oil. It's just a tube applicator. This is nourishing, it's moisturizing, it delivers that burst of hydration to the lips. But I think what I love most of all is the scent, honestly. Anything with yuzu, it's gonna get me. I'm Asian. It's so good. The Mango and Lime is also beautiful. It's just the kind of thing that's easy to wear. It doesn't last the longest. It's not like a thick oil. It's more of a thin, slightly slippier oil, but it's such a pleasure to reapply that I really like using it. Then we have another lip oil, which is the Colourpop Luxe lip oils. So they sent these over in the last PR package that I was talking about. I have two shades. The first shade is Playa Vista, and the second shade is Hot Spark, which is this fun coral. Playa Vista is this very neutral beige. So these are a really different kind of lip oil formula than the Ciate ones. These are not as slippy. They're a little bit thinner and they are kind of like an oil gloss hybrid. I'm gonna swatch these on the back of my hand for you. They're very lightly tinted. I know they look bright in the tube, but they're really not on the lips. So that's Playa Vista, and that's Hot Spark. Hot Spark, especially compared to what it looks like in the tube, is very sheer. And these just create a really nice wash of a tint across the lips. They are nourishing, but they're not as slippy slidey, which is good because these are tinted, so you wouldn't want that moving around on your lips very much. But yeah, they're just like a little bit of something. And I think because they're so natural, they're nice to throw on. If you're not wearing makeup, it doesn't look weird. Or if you are wearing makeup, it's just a nice accessory to that kind of look too. The second Colourpop formula is the Blotted Lip. So I don't know if you guys remember, I think they released a Blotted Lip formula years ago, maybe in like 2014, that was like a liquid with a doe foot applicator. So this is their new version of the Blotted Lip, and it's kind of like a matte lip balm that's lightly tinted. So this is the shade Missin' You, which is very much a me kind of shade. It has an ever so slight like rosy brown tint. So it looks like that on the lips. It's very, very sheer. And I like this because it gives you that nice feeling of like moisturization and comfort on the lips, but it's not shiny and it's not balmy. It's not oily at all. If you've tried the NARS matte lip balms or any of the K-Beauty matte balms, it's that kind of formula. It doesn't feel drying, but the finish looks matte. And not like a flat matte, but a kind of like soft, velvety, skin-like matte. Then I've saved the best Colourpop formula, I think, for last. This is the Fresh Kiss Glossy Lip Stain, which I have been loving. If you have tried the YSL water stains or the glossy stains, I feel like the affordable brands have finally caught up to the sophistication of that formula. Let me swatch this for you. This is the shade Sugar Snap, which is such a me kind of shade, comes with a doe foot applicator, and Sugar Snap is just the most beautiful, like kind of bright terracotta with an ever so like slight touch of orange. So let me tell you about this formula. It starts out as a gel. It's a very like sheer wash of a gel tint, the way that many lip stains are. But this stays glossy and starts to set down into like a grippier quality, which means that it doesn't move around the lip lines. And even though it's very, very thin, it's like a thin gel across the lips, it doesn't sink into lip lines, it doesn't bleed outside of the lips, and somehow it still stays kind of shiny. Eventually, that shine will wear off as the product wears off and you're left behind with a really natural stain, but it fades in an elegant way. Like it's not going to be uneven or like deeper in your lip lines. It's just an even wash of a stain across the lips. So the last thing is probably my favorite of all the products here. These are the new Merit Signature Lightweight Lipsticks, and I have two shades. I have the shade Slip and Cabo. So these, first of all, the packaging is beautiful. They're weighty. They've got these gorgeous bronze acrylic caps, and the tubes themselves are gold, and they have the Merit logo on the bottom, and they're thick and heavy. I've heard people compare these to the Maybelline Sensational lipsticks, I think, and I understand, like, conceptually they're similar, but in the hand, these are luxurious. They feel like a luxury lipstick, and they don't remind me of that in person at all. So, Slip is a nice, like, very, very neutral beige tone. That is Slip. And that's just 2 swipes. I think you can see they're pretty sheer and they're not shiny in finish. They're almost like a skin-like natural matte finish, but they're also very comfortable on the lips. This is the shade Cabo, which I'm wearing on my lips right now. And of course it's a bright orangey red. I had to get it. And that's 2 swipes of Cabo. So these are beautiful. They remind me most of the Victoria Beckham Beauty lipsticks in that they're a natural finish. They are very thin. They start out sheer, but they're buildable. The Victoria Beckham Beauty ones are a little bit more of a gel formula and they have a bit more shine, whereas these are a bit of a more matte finish, and it's more of a traditional lipstick formula, but it is truly a lightweight lipstick. I also think the shade curation is beautiful. They have released only 8 shades, but Merit does shade curation so well. Like, they kind of hit all the marks of like a berry and a red and a pink and a brown, but they're still very complex and somewhat unexpected. And there's this sophistication and depth to the shades that make them stand apart from a more affordable brand. I've obviously been impressed with Merit. I've talked about them a lot on my channel, and they've been, up until this point, a very kind of minimalistic, no makeup kind of brand. And I feel like these lipsticks are a foray into more like serious makeup. You know, lipstick can be serious, but it still is true to the brand in that they're sheer, they're easy to wear, they're not full pigment. They still feel casual, but chic at the same time. And I feel like Merit just took a step forward as a brand that really speaks to me and that makes me excited for what else they're going to bring out. So that's everything for my makeup roundup. I hope you enjoyed, and come back for the skincare and body care roundup, and I'll see you then. Bye.